Just Cheesy the Podcast, presented by Just Cheesy Productions.
Hi there, I'm your host Fondue. In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about cheese rinds. We're going to learn all about different types of cheese rinds.
Okay.
We're going to talk about edible cheese rinds.
Ooh, yummy.
We're going to talk about inedible cheese rinds.
Ew.
And we're going to find out if you can eat the wax on a Babybel cheese.
What? Why?
And of course, no episode would be complete without our signature, very cheesy joke.
Yeah, joke.
Stay tuned for episode 71, Catcher in the Rind, on Just Cheesy, the podcast. According to ice.edu, which is the Institute of Culinary Education, there is an article called Fundamentals of Cheese, Understanding Cheese Rinds.
Ooh.
And there's a quote here that basically informed my entire episode today.
Whoa.
And it says, all cheese rinds are edible, but not all cheese rinds are palatable.
Oh.
And growing up with a very American cheese palate,
Yeah.
I really didn't encounter rinds until much later in my cheese journey.
No, me neither.
I grew up with Colby.
Yeah.
I grew up with cheddar.
Yeah.
American cheese, well, there's no rind, but there is a plastic covering.
Right.
And probably the fanciest I ever got was a smoked cheese where I'm going to call it a rind, but I'm using air quotes. The rind was a little bit darker, but it wasn't really a rind. It was just the smoked edges. So when I encountered brie and cheeses like Manchego for the first time, two different types of rinds, I wasn't sure what to do.
Yeah.
And I was convinced you absolutely couldn't eat it because it had to be plastic or fake.
Right.
So first and foremost, we need to find out what is a cheese rind.
Yeah.
According to cheeseprofessor.com, a rind can be formed naturally or by the cheesemaker,
Okay.
and it's there to protect the cheese, but sometimes to flavor it.
Oh.
And the other thing to note is not all cheeses have rinds.
Oh.
For instance, low-moisture mozzarella does not have a rind.
Oh, okay.
And most of the blocks of cheese you buy at the grocery store, those don't have rinds either.
Ah.
One type of cheese rind is called a bloomy rind.
Ew.
Cheeses like brie and camembert have bloomy rinds,
Okay.
which is a soft white mold rind.
Ew.
It sprouts or blooms in the short time the cheese is aging.
Ew.
The cheese ager, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced
Oh, boy.
this.
Fondue.
You know what, Cheesy? Let's try something new today. If
What?
you're so great at pronouncing words, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah.
Go ahead. You pronounce it today.
Okay. Affineur.
Sure, that's how you say it.
Oh, it is.
The affineur pats down the fuzzy sprouts into a layer that becomes the cheese's rind.
Oh.
And this type of rind is indeed intended to be eaten.
Ooh.
And they say here it adds texture and a mushroomy flavor to the cheese.
Oh.
The author states that they go ahead and eat this rind unless it has an intense ammonia smell coming from it,
Okay.
which means that it would be a little bit overripe.
Oh.
Next is a washed rind cheese.
Ooh.
According to cheese.com, washed rind cheeses were originally from northern France, and they were made famous by monks who invented them.
Oh.
It says here that they tried to develop a meaty flavor
Ew.
in the cheese because people had to abstain from meat for a long period.
Oh, okay.
Typically, a washed rind cheese would be washed in saltwater brine,
Okay.
wine,
Ooh.
or other mold-bearing agents, so the surface becomes responsive to bacteria.
Okay.
If you recall, back in season 1, we talked about bee linens or Brevibacterium linens.
That's right.
Bee linens gives this its bright red or orange rind.
Okay.
It gives it a very pungent smell, and it
Okay.
gives it some distinctive flavors. And they give some examples of washed rind cheeses like Gruyere and raclette.
Oh, yum.
Natural is a type of rind.
Okay.
Parmigiano Reggiano is one of the natural rind cheeses. After it's aged about a year or more, it's pretty hard.
Yum.
They say it can take on the characteristics of where it's been aged. For instance, in this article, they say it can smell like a cave wall.
Okay.
Yum.
Sure.
And another type of rind could be a flavored rind.
Ooh.
Some cheesemakers add things like rosemary,
Ooh.
espresso, lavender,
Yum.
and other types of herbs and spices.
Yummy.
Bloomy, washed, natural, and flavored cheeses are not a sponsor this week.
Nope.
But if they were, their ad would go right here. Have you ever wanted to listen to the web?
Yeah.
Well, Newsly makes that possible.
They do.
They're an all-in-one audio super app for iOS and Android.
Super app.
You can listen to trending articles on the web on topics that you choose and get them read to you in a natural human voice.
What kind of topics?
Sports,
Cheese?
tech, business, science.
Cheese?
I'm sure there's even cheese.
Yay!
They even have an entire section for podcasts.
Are we there?
Of course we are.
Ooh.
It's one of my new favorite podcast apps. They even have digital radio.
Holy cow.
Just go to www.newsly.me to download it free.
Whoa.
Or use the link in the description. If you use the promo code Cheesy,
Cheesy.
that'll get you 1 month free premium subscription.
Yay, Newsly.
Now, back to the podcast. We've learned what rind is.
Yep.
We've learned about the types of rinds.
Yeah.
But now we need to go back to that original statement.
Oh.
All cheese rinds are edible, but not all cheese rinds are palatable.
Oh.
Some cheeses are wrapped in wax, cloth,
Yeah.
leaves, or bark.
Oh.
And did you know that they're all technically edible?
Ew, no.
Because they must all be food grade in order to touch the cheese. They're technically all edible.
Holy cow.
But I don't know about you. The last time I tried to eat some cloth or bark, it really wasn't a great experience.
Ew.
And according to myrecipes.com in the non-edible rinds section of this article, they're talking about plastic, wax, and cloth, etc.
Okay.
They said if you're not sure, try peeling it off. If you can remove it easily, it's probably man-made and
Oh.
they say not too tasty.
Yuck.
But let's say you eat some Parmigiano Reggiano and you get to that rind and it's super chewy and very hard to eat. What are you going to do with it?
I don't know.
Or maybe you don't love the taste of some of the bloomy rinds. What are some good ideas on how to use those
Yeah.
without throwing them away and being wasteful?
Yeah.
According to La Cucina Italiana.com,
Okay.
they have an article called How to Recycle Cheese Rinds, Original Ideas.
Ooh.
One of the most popular cheese rind ideas that I found on the internet was to add cheese rinds to soup in order to flavor them.
Ooh.
They also recommend putting cheese rinds in pasta.
Ooh, yum.
Here they say to soften it and leave it soak in milk for a couple of hours and then add pieces to the pasta or beans or pasta, potatoes, or risottos.
Yum.
Some people put cheese rind in their dough.
Oh.
Another way to eat it is to fry it.
Ooh.
They take the Parmesan rinds, cut it into cubes or strips,
Ooh, yum.
and they fry it in extra virgin olive oil.
Ooh.
And they say here if you want to go crazy, coat it in breadcrumbs.
Whoa.
Other people suggest grilling or baking the cheese.
Ooh, yum.
And they also say that you could actually microwave the cheese rinds.
Okay.
That makes the cheese rind extra crunchy.
Ooh, yum.
I've used cheese rind for soups, but I've never tried any of the others, so this could be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And what can you do with that wax, like on Babybel cheese?
Yeah.
According to minibabybel.ca, there are some frequently asked questions about Babybel cheese.
Wow.
One question is, what is Babybel's wax made of?
Yeah.
According to their website, it's made of a blend of paraffin and microcrystalline wax,
Okay.
and they add coloring.
Okay.
It is food safe,
Okay.
and it meets very strict regulatory standards. And it says here it poses no health risk if accidentally ingested.
Yuck.
But what can you do with it?
Yeah.
So I went on a website called godminster.com, and it said here, what can you do with cheese wax?
Yeah.
It says here you can use it to seal jars and bottles.
Okay.
You can use it as a fire starter.
Oh.
You can use it to make wax seals.
Ooh.
And you could potentially use the wax to coat your own cheese.
Oh.
They recommend using it like Play-Doh or a molding clay.
Oh, neat.
And they even said you could make a candle.
Oh.
So there's lots of uses for those rinds that you have with your cheese.
I'm ready for a joke, Fondue.
Okay. Why did the cheese rind refuse to go to the party?
I don't know.
Because it was afraid it wouldn't be edgy enough.
Oh, no.
Get it? Edgy? Like the outside
Yeah.
of the cheese is a rind.
Yeah, I get it. Wasn't that good?
Okay, I know it wasn't my best, but it was definitely a little bit cheesy. Thanks for listening to Just Cheesy the Podcast, episode 71,
you.
Catcher in the Rind. Check us out on Twitter,
Yeah.
Instagram, TikTok,
Ooh.
and YouTube.
Stay cheesy, everybody.